Welcome gamers to Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova. Now I do have to specify it's the Supernova expansion of Galactic Civilizations 4. It's the Steam release version of Galactic Civilizations 4. It's not the original Epic launch version of the game. So if you've got the Epic version, there is an expansion pack available on the Epic store to be able to go and update the game to the Supernova version. And there's a lot of changes and tweaks that have actually happened since the original release and the Supernova release, that, as I say, it was mainly sort of for the release with Steam. Now the game is still in early access. At time of recording, this is version 1.7, which has only just come out now. There's very, very active development going on in the game. Literally almost every day there's pretty major changes sort of happening in terms of enhancing the game mechanics and the sort of, not so much the core elements, but just getting the balance sort of happening with the game. And it's really, really quite impressive, like from an outsider looking in, just at how much is sort of happening with the actual development of the game. I'm hoping that this series will actually be able to impart a little bit of that about the interfolding of all the different sorts of layers and mechanics in the game that sort of lead to a game that's easy to embrace, but with a lot of stuff going on underneath the hood, like a hell of a lot of stuff that you don't need to know what it's doing. Just you need to sort of be aware of how it all interlaces and interweaves into something really quite magical, which is fantastic. Before I get started, I do have to thank Stardock for having access to the game, but also they are going to be sponsoring this series. So this is a sponsored series. Now I'm not under any compunction to sort of only say good things about the game or anything like that. I'm allowed to sort of just present it the way it is, and I'll be certainly going through with that in mind. But if you do have any qualms about that I won't be honest with you, I can assure you that I am always see my number one priority to be the audience. And so but if you do feel that just be aware that this is sponsored content. So I just wanted to get that out there before we get started, and I'll introduce each video with that as well, just so that you're actually under no illusions about that aspect of what's actually happening through here. But genuinely, and I can sort of say this, I mean, the more I've played the game, this version of the game, the more I've actually really appreciated just how much intricacy there is, that, as I said before, working under the hood, just sort of working under the surface to interweave so many different game mechanics into something that's very, very cohesive and very, very much a role play sort of aspect to it as well. It's as I say, it's a work of art in my mind, the way that they've been able to do that. Now, if I do sort of have to think of something that's any sort of negatives about it, the only thing that I find where there's a bit of a disconnect for me is the space combat, but I think that they'll be working on that as well, hopefully over the coming months anyway, just to try to tweak it. It won't be, I'm pretty sure it won't be, I shouldn't say anything definite, but it won't be a full-blown tactical system, but just the auto battler system. Personally, I hope that there's a bit more work sort of put into the auto battler. So let's just get that out of the road. That's the one area of the game that I hope that there's more development put into. But the rest of it, I've got to say, I am super impressed with what I'm seeing with the game. Let's just go through it in this video. This will be like an episode 0. I'm not going to be actually doing much other than just get my race established and just get the game started, but also to show you the scope of the game, because I want to sort of present it. I want to present what you can do with the game, because it's so broad. I can't really think of certainly another Space 4X game that's got the breadth of what you can actually build from something extremely small to something extremely large. So I think we might start there. So let's just go into the actual game itself. We'll just go to a new game. And I won't talk too much about this until we start to set up our actual game. So we'll just go and choose any old faction. I'll just choose the standard old humans, the Terran Alliance, back up through there. Just go next. This is again just we can personalize different aspects of of each faction. We'll just go next in through there again as well. Now, what this essentially is the galaxy settings. Now, if I just go back and reset defaults, you can see there that it defaults to a small galaxy side with a binary sector. What does that mean? Well, I'll show you exactly what that means. Let's actually make it the smallest of the small. Actually, let's make it the biggest of the big. Let's go and maximize both of these. This will then lead to a massive, massive galaxy. So what we've got is a gigantic galaxy size with many sectors attached to it. So when we go to the next screen, you'll then see we've got up to 95 players that can be put into the actual game itself. Now, each faction has to be unique, so you need to generate all of those different ones. Now, there's not enough players in the game for that to be done, but you can still play these. And so essentially you can play with as many as you like. But let's just start a game and I'll show you the scope of what we're dealing with here. I've got to show this actually. Maybe I'll do this actually when we do the actual playthrough. I love this animation. The cutscenes in the game are absolutely gorgeous. Like I remember back in GalCiv 2, they were quite clunky, but, and they sort of got a bit annoying. But these are just beautiful. And I actually can't think of one of them that I've seen that I haven't enjoyed a lot. Just watching it, it just gives you such an immersive feel for what's going on. So this is actually the animation for the start of the game. So maybe I'll show it here, and we can just sort of get this one out of the way. But they really are beautiful what they've actually done through here. There's so much to like about this game, as I say. And they go, and then we sort of look at the scope of what's happening here. So this looks like a colony ship ready to go and settle the stars. Beautiful stuff, beautiful stuff. There we go. So we'll just click on done. So here's a Terran Alliance. I'll just click on done through there. So we start off essentially in one sector, and if we sort of zoom back out, this is the sector of space that we're then sort of dealing with. Now, if you've played the previous games, you're thinking, oh, yep, that's just your standard GalCiv Galaxy, yeah, no problem. Okay, we can sort of, I can work within that. That's not an issue. But no, there's a lot more to involve with this. I'm just going to turn on the cheats, and we're going to do FOW, Fog of War, and I'm just going to turn that cheat on. And so, and then we'll just quit out of that particular screen. Now we're going to come across with all of the different factions. I'll just pause this bit and just go through them all. All right, so here's the sector of space that we're actually playing in. We've got other different factions back over through here as well, some independent, some actual players. This will eventually sort of flesh itself out. But there's not too many actually in this particular sector, even though there's 19 factions playing out of a possible 95. As I zoom out, we then get to see the glory that is the galaxy. And so we're seeing multiple sectors of space, and each of these sectors is their own mini-game. And within the mini-game, then there's connections between the sectors across to the other sectors. So there's like stargates or warp lanes through these sorts of black holes. Or I think it's similar to the black holes. Actually, I think I would need to have the tech to actually have a look and locate those particular things. But these all then link through with stargates that sort of then, or warp lanes that sort of then connect them in through. That's your choke points once you actually go and finish off your particular sector. So the scope of this game is just enormous, like absolutely enormous. I hope I've sort of shown how that sort of then works. You've got different sort of factions now in each of these different areas. Some of them may be alone, some of them may even not be. Oh, there we go. We've got, actually, no, they're just independents back and through that one through there. It's phenomenal, actually, what they've actually done. So that's the largest of the galaxies with different factions across there. Okay, let's now just go to the other extreme, and we'll show you what a tiny galaxy looks like. Okay, so in this case, what we'll do is we'll just ramp the galaxy size down to tiny and the number of sectors down just to a singular area of space. And just go next. We've got a same cutscene again. I really do like that one, I've got to say. All right, and we'll just use our same, we'll just zoom out. So you can see there's only a handful of different sectors in here. I'll just turn on the cheats again. FOW. And whoops, yep, just going to go through the ones that we've actually now met in this particular location. So this is the galaxy. Just it's now a single sector. Very, very small numbers, so we don't have very much involved. This is really like a pocket-sized game. So you can play very, very quickly, very, very short with these sorts of games, or you can play enormously big. And the game has been sort of really tested across the whole gamut from what I've actually understand. To be honest, those big galaxies are way, way, way too big for me to play. I'm sort of someone that likes fairly compressed games, and so for me this is but this is a really nice little sort of pocket battle type scenario that you could then sort of set up for yourself, where you've only got like 3 players. By the way, I might just point out a few little tips and things as we go through as well. If you just go back to the main menu in here and just go into new game again, I'll just go back to the actual defaults, and I'll just show you what that actually looks like. So I'll just reset the defaults. Now the default is to have a binary sector with a small galaxy size. Now it's almost like this. It's the galaxy size probably really is more sector size. If you just get your head around that, it's actually how much there is in your sector or in the starting sectors with the actual number of sectors in through this site. So that probably would be in my head. I'm thinking it actually makes more sense because I can go back down to a single number of sectors, and if I just go back across with a gigantic galaxy size and go next, we can still have 31 players just playing in a single sector, so that we can have a lot of players going back into that one through there. If we go back down to small and if I go to tiny and binary, and then just go and go to next, you can see I can have up to 7 players, but playing in 2 different areas of the galaxy. By the way, you'll notice that the game doesn't actually flesh out all of these, even when it's got enough characters in here to actually flesh it all out. It doesn't do it. It suggests that really you want to be going for around about half the total number, rather than actually filling them all up. If you do fill them up, it just means you're going to be playing in everyone else's pocket, essentially. But if you don't fill them up, you've got a little bit of more room to maneuver, and so the game is designed to be sort of played where you've got like maybe anywhere between a third and a half of the slots left blank just for expansion. But if you don't want to play that way, you've got the choice of filling them up or getting rid of them as well. Like you can actually sort of ditch them and just play with a two player game essentially, like you and the AI, in whatever you wanted to be doing. So there's so many different ways of actually playing the actual game itself. If I just go back and reset the defaults in through here. So the default is to have a small galaxy size, meaning a small sector that you're playing in, and then the number of sectors just as binary. So let's have a look and see what this one looks like. And so these are your defaults that do come sort of in through here. Also, this is another thing with the game. It does try to, it suggests also that you don't just go with all one type, unless you particularly, again, you play it your way, but it does think that it's a good idea to have some passive type units and then some aggressive type units as well. And just getting a mix, that will give you a lot more role play and interaction with diplomacy, etc., through the actual game itself. Let's have a look and see what this one looks like with our cheats. And we'll click back out of there, and we'll turn our cheats back on again. FOW, Fog of War. So we'll just go through these, and we'll just zoom back out. So this is our binary system. So we've got like a small group in through here. We've got a couple of factions playing in this side. Looks like we've got the Yor and the Festoon, I forget what they're actually called, the Festoons, back in through this other side at Caraday. Anyway, that's they're in through there. The back over this side, we've got the like this is a sector that we're playing in. We've got 4 factions playing in here. Now, ultimately, when we officially get to meet everybody, we'll now start to sort of see who actually controls the most through this little guidance area through here. But the game doesn't know that we can see everything. We're secretly cheating. The game doesn't really I like that as well. The game doesn't mind us actually playing it whatever way we want to play the game. So if you do want to play with cheats, then play with cheats. If you don't, then don't. I just wanted to show you what the scope of the game actually was, because I think it gives you a very, very good idea as to what you could expect when you do play it. So in this instance, we've got like a fair few. We've got 4 different factions in this starting area. We'd need to sort of not finish them off as such, but we'd be wanting to dominate this sector and then get the tech to get across to this sector. Now, the tech to get across the sectors is not that deep into the tech tree. It's actually, it is fairly sort of close. So there's certainly ways to, you can find and get across into those other sectors relatively early in the game. So it's not as if it's like a very much a late game sort of aspect to the actual game as well. Right, well, I think that sort of just goes through a little bit more about how the game actually looks and what it does and so on and so forth in terms of the scope of what it does. There's other things I do want to talk about, and I do want to touch on the way that various aspects of the game, as I say, interweave. Now, we'll be doing that through the Let's Play. We'll be actually going through, and with the gameplay, I'll certainly be explaining things, but I just want to give you a bit of a feel for how this all gets put together. And I'll just go back and turn off the Fog of War as an example right now. So I'll just go back in and FOW. So we just turn off the Fog of War. There we go. Order has been restored. In fact, that's funny. We've now got the we now are aware of the score graph on the side there. But when we come back in, there's a lot of different aspects about the game, and one of them essentially, or there's a number of them back down in the bottom through here, where we've got like civilization areas. Maybe what I should actually do a little bit more. I should show this in a better way. But before I get into the actual nitty-gritty of the different mechanics, or just superficially the mechanics, because we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty when we do the actual series, but just to give a brief overview of the various mechanics that all sort of, as I say, interweave and collide with each other through the way the game is actually played. Getting your head into the right sort of frame of actually playing the game is just so important with these sort of games. If you come into it thinking it's a certain type of game and you approach it that way and you're not really switched on to what the game is trying to be or do, your enjoyment will diminish. I find that so often with strategy games. This is not a simulation game, for example. This is very much almost consider it a board game style game. And with that in mind, there's little things like, for example, I suggest pressing the G key and turning on a grid. It will then make it feel more like a board game. And you've got different types of grids as well, by the way. You've got grids that sort of are shown throughout all of space, some that turn off when you go far enough back out. If I press G again, I think I get it like a different one where it only shows back in through here. I press G again, I think it's all, yeah, now it only shows when I'm further back out. So just StarDoc does these sorts of things a lot, where they actually basically try to find interfaces or changes to the user interface to enhance the way that people want to play. So it's not a turn on the grid or turn off the grid. It's a cycle through a whole series of different ways of playing. This one here, just pressing it again, we only have the grid inside, claimed space, but not on the outside. So pick the one that sort of suits you. I tend to like it on completely, to be honest. This is areas that I haven't explored yet. So this is a game that I loaded in just to sort of show, so I can show the different bits and pieces. But the way you should actually approach this game is as if you're playing a board game, which means that a lot of the mechanics are going to be simplified to the point where they've been distilled, I think, rather than simplified, if that makes any sort of sense. Like the mechanics are very, very complex in what they do, but the game looks after a lot of the complexity for you so that you can just get on with making the decisions and immersing yourself in the actual game itself. The other aspect of the game, it really does feel like the role play aspect is much, much stronger in GalCiv 4 Supernova than in any of the other GalCivs that have come before it. So you'll become more attached to ships, specific ships. I mean, you'll become more attached to actual commanders, to some of your civilians and things like this. Now, ultimately, the scope of the game can be absolutely enormous, but you do have this connection, and it's a very interesting and intricate balance that they've actually been able to hit with this, to have something where the scope can be super broad, where the mechanics can be very, very simplified in the way that you actually apply them, but you still actually get that very, very deep immersion. So that's sort of one aspect of looking at it. But I think that you get that mainly by approaching the game as if it's like a very rich board game. I think would be the way of sort of putting your head into the actual game itself. It's, yeah, as I say, not a simulation or anything like this. Each game. Also, the other thing with this as well, like one of the other things that StarDoc have done incredibly with this game is just to be able to get every game to play sort of very, very different. The opportunities that come up are of like the different sorts of things you're going to find in space, the different resources you're going to have access to, means that the actual gameplay, every single time you play it, will be wildly different. And not wildly different in a way that's completely out of balance, but a very, very balanced way of playing a very, very different game every time you actually play it. I really love that aspect. The procedural generation in the game is phenomenal, with balance, and that's, as I say, that's super rare. And I don't mind games that are unbalanced, and this will sometimes present you with opportunities, or not opportunities, with situations that are unbalanced. But the actual, it's a game where there's you can see that there's a balance to what's going on, but there's so many opportunities with what you randomly find to push the game into all sorts of different directions. And also, I should actually point out, a lot of the choices that you make may feel superficial when you actually go and actually choose them, but a lot of the choices you make will actually then have a roll-on effect as you go through the myriad of different mechanics in the actual game itself. So let's talk about some of these game mechanics now. We'll just we'll just pick our way through them. I think I'll start with sort of the most basic of them, essentially, which is the actual planets. So I've got like a home world in through here called Refuge, and so I'll try to think of this in mind if people have played like GalCiv 2, GalCiv 3, just so you get a bit of a feel for what's going on, because there are some changes here. Again, they've simplified the things that weren't important, and they've enhanced the things that give you strategic choice. And so, again, I really applaud what StarDoc have done with the planets themselves. If I double-click Refuge, which is our home world, for example, one thing you'll notice is we don't actually have now a flat, top-down view of the world itself. It's now just a type of world underneath the various areas, so it doesn't try to conform to a grid of actual land mass and water, etc., where it avoids the water. It means it's much more open. I actually quite like this one. I'm guessing that some people won't, but the way it sort of works now, it used to be that you had to sort of always bring across your different improvements into the game and then sort of build things up there. It's a bit of a hybrid situation now where you've got certain things you can bring back in. Like, for example, at the moment we're building a Razor's Lift, which is a manufacturing improvement. And so this is a galactic achievement, only one of them in the galaxy. So I'm trying to sort of get this one before anyone else does. What I could possibly do in here is I've got a fair bit of money, so I may be able to just go and click on that one, for example, and then just go, in fact, this is fairly, like, it's going to cost me 788 credits. Out of the 900 that I've actually got. So let's go and do that. So we'll actually go and rush that one. So that's a unique galactic improvement. And when that one sort of runs out, I can then sort of queue up other things. Now I've got a capital mainframe. The way that the map does work, again, you've got little icons that are showing you what it will then do. Look, this one here will promote research. We've got +1 to research in both of these locations. Manufacturing back up in through there. Another research one back in through this other side over here. If I grab this capital mainframe, I can use this one to boost research. This will then give me a research of 20% actually that's the base effect for the whole planet. We'll have a 20% research boost, and it will give me another +2 research. I won't go through the details here, but just to be aware, what we actually have is we have a governor on the actual planet itself. We then have basic sort of aspects of the actual planet itself, for example, like approval or pollution, and these all have a bearing on the output of the planet. The planetary input is this is the basic resources. So we've got like mineral input, we've got technology inputs. So this is essentially where with what's coming in. Now you'll notice that when I hover over these, I've got refuges giving me 9, but there's a place called Boron 4 giving me another 9, and then we've got a couple of other places just giving me just trace amounts. These are colonies. They're not actual main worlds. They're not sort of core worlds. So the game is now split between colonies and core worlds. I'll talk about that in just a minute. There's a lot to talk about in this episode. But this is what these are. These are the inputs that come into the core worlds, and then the core worlds then make and convert these across into actual output. And so the basic inputs get converted across into manufacturing, research, income, food, and influence. So these are what we're actually generating at our capital. And so in this case, like we're getting a fair bit of manufacturing. when I go and actually build this one here in the coming turns, that will then boost the research. So if I just go and place this one now, just superficially having a look at this one in through here, this looks to be a very, very good spot to just make this into an absolute research hub. Now, if I go and grab this one in here and drag it into there, I'm getting a +1 research into there, and I can then go and get the, hang on, before I do that one, if I hover back over, I've got adjacency bonuses there of +3% for the adjacency. So if I go and drag that one into that position there, I'm going to get a +1 into the research into there. So the research will go from +2 to +3. And if we have a look at the research over there, it's 11.5. That ultimately, when that's built, will then be another 3 on top of that one. Then I can actually, the other thing, you can see we can't build any more improvements. But there are actually things called districts. This is the other aspect, which is sort of a bit different now in the game. And so what I can then just go and do is queue up, like for example, this one, this lakes gives me +1 to research, and this tundra gives me +1 to research. If I go and click on that one through there, I then can build the districts. And these don't require special improvements. We don't have to drag these across. We just go and think, okay, I'm going to get like 3 bonuses now on that particular district, that level modifier in through there. It's going to take me 4 turns to get it, and we can just queue that one up as well, and this one as well. We might think, okay, let's grab another one into there. And so these districts, and I've got like a manufacturing district down in through this side, where the where I'm getting extra pollution. It says, so it is generating pollution, but it is giving me a percentage to my manufacturing. And because I've got so many of these different aspects which are boosting that district, this district is actually then giving us like other boosts to actual manufacturing, which is why this world is very, very good at manufacturing. This is our core world, of course. So that's sort of in a nutshell how the planets work, and we'll go through in a lot more detail about how these actually do happen. One thing that you actually will see with this as well is we've got citizens. Now the citizens are very, very important in the planets, and you'll see that they've got like a whole lot of different aspects to them. So for example, they've got bonuses with their with what they have with their manufacturing, etc. They've got also different aspects about intelligence, social diligence, resolve, and expectations. These impact how they operate within any sort of situation, not just on a planet. And then we've got some other aspects to them as well. If I just press the shift and then come back down with this one here, this one's got 2. So this one's a nihilist, so believes in the rejection or denial of inherent meaning or value in life. So this would be a fairly nasty sort of group, and they're part of what's called the Natural League and through here as well. So hang on, where's that one? So this is they're members of this particular group. So there's a lot of intricacy with the little elements in the actual game itself. So our citizens, we've got 5 out of a possible 10 on this particular planet, and each of these have also got like a different role. So they've got like, this one's a worker, so this one provides manufacturing based on their diligence. Again, we look at the diligence is 5, so they're basically helping us with 5 manufacturing. Their low expectations give them an approval boost, so they're actually happier as well. And this is what this one is down in through here. So the happiness in through this side, we could actually, sorry, I'll just hover over actually it's not showing me that, there it is, the approval. So we then can actually see what is impacting exactly the approval. Now we don't have to do all this, but if you're wanting to really get under the game and actually start to sort of try to figure out what's going on, you do actually have access into these to see what's happening with the actual planet itself. And so with a lot of these, you can see that we're unprotected and there is too much crime, so we've got criminals on the planet. This one here will have the same sort of deal, I guess. This one might be, this one isn't a nihilist or part of a group. This one is just like a citizen essentially that's involved in manufacturing. This one here has got only 4 resolve, so it's not as good as working as the as Eric Bree. Like Eric Bree is sort of like, I guess, the leader of this group of civilians. Back in through here, we've got a this one here is an entertainer, so it boosts the approval on the worlds. Again, the game explains it all. If you just press shift, and you can then sort of go across and actually see how things actually then sort of do work with the with the tooltips and how things like in terms of explaining how the game actually does sort of then function. And then we've got a couple in through here which are entrepreneurs, which will then sort of bring in sort of cash into our economy and through this side as well. As I say, there's an enormous amount going on with the game. I'm scratching my head trying to think of a game with this many different aspects that sort of, as I say, interweave like without you even realizing the depth of what's going on, unless you start to look for it. Also on the planets, we actually have a few different orbitals. So actually these are that's not the orbitals, that's the colonies. I'll just go click on done. Back in through this side of the side, down in here we have orbitals like recruiting stations. So I've filled these up with different aspects which are also then boosting the actual planet itself. So refuge is a core world. And so it is attracting a lot of different aspects or a lot of different inputs from outside. If we follow these different lines, we can then follow them to other worlds. And so we've got another world over here where we actually have Boron 4. Now, Boron 4 is just a colony. So there's no governor here. And this one is only outputting, like when we hover over it, you'll see it's got 7 manufacturing, 3 research, 4 wealth, 0 food, and 16 influence, I think is what we actually sort of seeing through there. I can actually just go and press shift and do that one. So yeah, that's cultural input there actually, so that's 16. No food at all. This can be really valuable to then boost what's happening on your home worlds, but you can see there's a decay of 44%, and this is actually a decay based on distance. So as we sort of zoom out, the distance between this world and our home world is fairly great. So what may be better is to actually then put someone in charge here and actually have this world operating as a core world rather than as a colony. And so to do that, it's very, very simple. Again, things have been simplified a lot. We have other aspects, for example, called leaders. Now, I don't have enough money to go and hire a leader. So these are the new leaders that we actually have in through here. But I do actually have a few ministers, and I'm thinking of using Val Leash to then go and do this particular one. Now, she's got very high social. We also have a minister of technology. This one's not that great. but Joe, I think I'll leave the others where they are. I'll leave them in their different roles. These give different boosts. So this is again where we've got different civilians that are then helping out with different aspects of the game itself. So we can recruit, a number of them to sort of come into the game for us. We have our ministers, which we have to unlock different areas to then unlock further ministries, and then these give boosts. So this one is giving me a +9 boost to approval. If I go and drag this one back out to and make it unassigned, it means the approval throughout the whole empire will now drop a little bit, and we can then just go back into governors, and then we have the 3 different other colonies, which are all feeding back into refuge at the moment. So if we go and grab Val Leash and assign Val Leash to that particular world, that world, Boron 4, is now a colony, and so we can now go back if we just click on done. So Boron 4 can now double click it, and we're now going to have a way of then building and boosting this particular world. So that's sort of how that works. Again, very, very simple, but dramatic in the impact it can actually have on the game itself. And so these also then have a loyalty factor, so you have to manage that as well. So she doesn't like, have to manage things. It's a -20 in through there, natural loyalty of +70. So you've got to manage the people, or you can if you're wanting to, which enhances the role play. So again, all these great mechanics just all sort of coming in together. You've got different benefits, which will be back in through here as well. Again, you're going to end up with unique things to play with on the different planets. The planets will feel so much more important than nearly any other game I've played, like with, we're talking about sort of space 4X. And so the flavor of the game is, as I say, is unique in so many different ways. I'm gushing because it really is super impressive. And as I say, the balance of what they've done with the scope of what they've done, mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Anyway, let's not build that one up. That will sort of, before we end our term, we'd have to go and do things there. I really just want to give an overview of what the game presents. In this, we're not going to be playing this. I'm just sort of showing you what the game actually does give us. You can see through here, this thing's got heaps of orbitals we can put on this particular world, like just absolutely lots and lots of them. And so we can just go back into here. We've got one that's already here. It's a precursor elevator. Then we can go and start to build in other orbitals if we can afford them. So we'll come back to that one in a little while. We had a quick look at the leaders. I'll go through this in a lot of detail. They come in ministers, governors, diplomats eventually as well, where we can send them off to groups that we have actually then found. Again, the diplomacy has been worked on a lot with this version of the game, and it's simple but deep. It's so there's a lot of depth to what we see here, and then we've got actual commanders. These are ship commanders. Now we don't have any of these just yet, but eventually we'll be able to sort of unlock these. And then we have different factions. Now we saw some of those. We saw the Natural League there before, and so these are going to sort of push us along in certain directions for the way that we can then go and play as well. And so again, this richness of what the game presents, without it making something you have to stumble over. So it's a lot of stuff without it being overly complex. It is just mind blowing. The way the mechanics actually work together is like, with the civilians working with other aspects of the game itself. So let's just click on done there. We won't worry about those. So that's the leaders back in through that other side. They're not so much the civilians, but they are the leaders. The civilians are also part of the planet as well. Like, for example, on this particular planet, if we go and have a look in through there, we've only got one because we only settled with one. We only have a maximum of one at this stage unless we start to build more housing back into here. We can add population back into this particular planet. We can sort of see that these guys are taxes are too high, population capacity gives us a -5, they're unprotected. So there's different things in here which will then impact how they perform, and their approval will actually then impact their output as to what they actually then get to go and do. Again, the mechanics are fantastic in this game. You're going to get sick of me saying that, because like when I've been playing it and testing it, I've been just going, wow, all the time. So it's really, really astounding. Okay, back over through here. Let's just go through a few of the other screens and mechanics, because these are all parts of different mechanics of the actual game itself. So the civilians and the leaders sort of work a lot with your resources. So the different resources will be impacted heavily based on your civilians and leaders. Over through here we have the civilization itself. Now, one thing they've actually changed with these, you don't get to play with a lot of these aspects of the game until you've actually unlocked a few techs. The techs are very, very early on. But what's good about that is it means that you ease into it as a new player. So you unlock these game mechanics to then start to play with them. And these civilization policies, I can switch these out at any point in time to then decide to have my civilization focus on different aspects of the game. And so the one I've gone through here is just Heart of the Empire. If I go and click on that one, it'll then go back across. And so Heart of the Empire, if I sort of go and, if I just go back out into this side, it should show me where that actually is, what it's doing there if I just hover over it. And so what this one does, just gives me influence and income on my home world. But there's so many different things. Some of them will be negative. You get like extra growth, but at the expense of approval in this case. There's a heap of them, and you can just switch them in and out, at whatever you want. If you wanted to sort of do more with research, you've got that one there, for example, where your diplomacy goes down, but your research goes up. So if you're not worried too much about what other people think of you. Now, the other thing with this is that these are also specific to the faction you're playing, the technology that you've unlocked, etc., etc., etc. So these are not just what everyone gets to play with, it's what your faction gets to play with. Now, some of them are global, but some of them are quite unique as well. So just be aware of that. Again, every faction you play plays very, very differently. Everything is different. It's as I say, mind-blowingly intricate without it appearing to be intricate. And so it's all happening sort of under the hood. We'll just put Heart of the Empire back in. So that's a very, very simple one. You can impact your taxation here. It's just global taxation. It's not like a per planet thing. Again, simplified. And so in this case, if we go to high taxes, our approval goes down to 24. We can then see what the overall civilization outputs would be for the multiple planets. So at high tax, we end up with fairly low, but we end up with a fair bit of planetary income coming in. If we go to medium tax, the approval is at 68, which is fairly sort of level, but everything else then starts to come through. If we go back to normal taxation, we get a little bit extra through. Again, we can make these decisions without having to go and look at screeds and screeds of screens to actually try to figure out what's going on. But you can see there that a lot of these things are impacted by the approval ratings of the actual factions that you're playing with. If we go to low, we get even more. So if we need to really boost our research and our manufacturing, and we don't care too much about the money, like at the moment, in this case, the planetary income is just 3.2. We can see there we're going backwards slightly if we go to a low taxation policy, but the approval goes up to 83%. So again, you just pick and choose which way you want to go. There is a bit of a bug there, actually. If you go 60 at 68, if I go that way, then come back this side, it goes to 72. I think it fixes itself as soon as I unpause the game. So don't worry about what the numbers that you're seeing there too much at this point in time. As I said before at the start of this is an early access game. There's still a lot that they're still working on with the actual game itself. So that's the civilization overview. That's a civilization screen. Very simple, but very, very powerful. Again, it's really, really amazing. When we come back into it, the next screen that we see across through here is our cultural progression. And you'll see this when we actually go and when we choose what type of civilization we want to play with. And in this case, these are the ideologies that we actually have. Now, previously, in the game, I think it only had like 3 ideologies, so essentially good, neutral, and evil. So that was sort of the way it worked. And so these now, actually, I think it was these. Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, totalitarianism was, I think, the evil one. Pacifism was the good one. What was the other one? I can't think what the other one was. Traditionalism, maybe? Anyway, this has been fleshed out a lot. And so many of the choices that you make will impact what happens with these ideologies. And so you are managing to a degree the choices of the ideologies, and then these unlock different benefits. So for example, in this case, I can unlock 2 of the individualism ideologies because that's what we have. Our race likes individualism, and we've got a few citizens with this as well. So we actually have a bit of a boost along for the points for this particular ideology. So we've got 26 cultural points, so I can spend 2 of them in here at this point in time. So if I go to independence, for example, this will then spawn the independence, which is a different type of ship. So we'll just go back across into that one through there, and oh, hang on, I've already unlocked that one. So I've got another 2 in here. So private property rights, for example. So all of these will then go and do different types of things. 3 leaders join us. Let's just go with that one there. So we'll just go yes. And with that one, it costs a bit more than what we had through there. So we still got 12 culture points, which we then would need to sort of go and spend. So these unlock benefits as you start to move down the tree. But every time you sort of do more of these things, you are then pushing even further down a particular line, which will then have impact in all the other areas of the game. So it's, again, that the intricate weaving of all these different mechanics coming back together at a later date will then actually sort of have an impact for you in role play, diplomacy, etc., etc. It's very, very cool. So that's this is the cultural progression. Simple to use, but much, much more fleshed out than what it ever was in Gal Civ 3. So it's certainly a lot more further along. We now actually have the 3 different leaders that have now come back in. So we can sort of apply them, and we can switch these around, at whim to sort of wherever we want them to be. Like if we want to put another person in through here, for example, it will then tell us that the approval or the social is going to be the important one through this side. So we've got a 5. We've got actually very, very good diligence in through here. So if there's something where diligence kicks in, then that would be good. This one here with 8 is probably the best for social, but it still has good diligence. So it would mean just going through these very, very basic numbers to pick the right people for the right positions. I'm thinking I should also make at least one of these worlds also into an actual core world, and so I'd probably be dragging one of these across. Now these will have different bearings. This social modifies the leader's skill at approval and influence tasks, so I think let's go and grab this one across into this particular world. If we go to diligence, this is for commanders and for governors of manufacturing-based worlds. Now, we'd probably be wanting to get that. This one's a pretty well-rounded individual, but this one here is a bit more of a taskmaster with 10 diligence back and through there. This one is better for commanders, the resolve, and this one's better for technology and back in this other side. But she's pretty good all over, so let's just go and add in her. You'll see that she's got a 75 rating. As we put her in there, she probably won't like work in there. Yeah, it's dropped by 20 again because she now has to manage things. So her approval will go down. That impacts, again, more the role play aspect where they will make choices that you may not want them to make. So anyway, that's now sort of opened up another world. Now, Eden Rose at the moment is being fed back to our main colony. We can then sort of divert it back into this other one. These are both in the Eden Rose area, which is very, very close in this game to Drengen space. So we've got both of these and through this other side. So that's Eden Rose 3. Actually, that's already now automatically going back across there. That's good. It's just going to the closest one. So this is now a core world. This is still just a colony, as you can sort of see through there. So all of the different benefits will now feed across back into the core worlds. Now, why is that important? It means that when you've got like a crappy little world in through here, we've got a poor class 1 world. Is it worth colonizing? In the previous games, probably not. In this game, absolutely, because what we end up getting feeding straight back in is the manufacturing, the research, the wealth, and the food. So we can actually end up getting like a very, very cheap food supply, for example, into a world, because food is global, but it's one of these things where you may pick up a very, very poor world that actually feeds your civilization. It sort of works that way, which is just awesome, because it means that suddenly these little class 1 worlds, which I never ever used to settle, now become so much more valuable in GalCiv 4 Supernova. As I say, the combination of everything that StarDoc have done is incredibly impressive. So the little crappy planets that you used to not ever worry about are now often quite viable, depending on that mix of different sorts of inputs that they can then, or outputs essentially, that they can then sort of transfer across into your core worlds. You just need citizens to be able to then go and just settle on them, and then you've actually got, you're picking them up. So that's sort of how that's all working. God, I hope I'm spending a lot of time here, but this is really, there's just so much in this game. There's just so much in it. So we've done the cultural progression. This here is executive orders. These are very, very cool as well. And so when you click on these cost you different things. Predominantly, they cost you control. Now, control is something you pick up sort of a little bit over time. So these are special things you can do. For example, we can go and draft colonists if we wanted to draft a colony ship. This one would cost me 33 credits. There's no cooldown on this one, so I can just go and grab a colony ship at whim, which essentially means it's a free citizen as well when you actually do go and grab that. So these are worth grabbing as well, depending on the opportunities that you have. So if we find something that would be worth settling, and I think I've got a colony ship already coming across over this other side anyway. But if you do find things that are worth grabbing, because it is a bit of the game is a little bit of a land grab at the start, trying to get as much as you possibly can. That's going to help you, but then you still have to protect it later on. But that's sort of the land grab is very, very real in this game, and so being able to just use these control points to then go and actually get things is also vitally important. But it's also got, for example, this one's still on a cooldown. I used this one earlier on in the game to essentially have a look at an area of the map, which is again will give you clues as to where you should be settling. You can do things like where you can sort of print money, get like 500 treasury. Approval will go down a little bit. Control will cost you 60 control for that one through there. And then this one here is exploit resources. So in times of need, we can exploit government land of all of their resources. This will create a significant pollution problem for a full year. So we end up with a pollution for 12 months, but we get a treasury boost of 250. So at 50 control costs. So these are another mechanic in the game that where if you make the right choice at the right time, can actually really, really give you an important strategic boost when you need it. Again, I love this choice that they've actually put into the game. There's a lot more strategic choice than what we've seen before. I'll skip over this one. This is the data bank where we can look at the statistics of your civilization. And again, it is very, very cool. This is very early. Actually, I might as well just show it. I'll just go through it in the order as we go through. So this one just goes through essentially, with whoever you've come across, where your standings actually are in the game itself. So we're coming in second in terms of faction power, economic power, we're coming last. Military power, we're coming last at this point in time. Population, we're sort of a bit behind them. Influence, we're up. The Drengen are down below there. Manufacturing, coming second, etc., etc. So we can see everything is shown. There's nothing hidden, which I like. So many games try to hide all this sort of stuff, but this one doesn't do that. So you've got all sorts of different ways of sort of looking at the different course of events that have then sort of gone over the course of it. You've got different reports in through here as well as to where you stand in the galaxy. your stats overall. Again, fantastic stuff. Core worlds, what they're doing. So you can just here's your ledgers and your spreadsheets and so on and so forth. It's very, very cool what's actually in this particular screen as well. So a lot of different things in the game. It's sort of one of these things where often you get games and then some of the stuff is hidden, and so you don't really know what's going on. But if you are interested and you sort of get involved in the game, you will be able to get the information that you require to then make the most of the game when you actually do play it. So that's that one through there. Now I can't get this one here. This one requires the cultural influence technology. This is Galactic Challenges. This is going to be sort of like boosts along that we can then sort of try to then go and do later on. So many of these things are closed off to you until you get the basic technology. This one's a little bit further along in the tech tree than the early ones. I'll show you the tech tree in just a minute. This in through here is diplomacy, so communicate with the other civilizations. Again, it gives you a feel as to where you currently are, what they think of you and why they think of you in a particular way. If we can sort of see in through here, with shared borders gives them a massive -4. Cultural differences -1. Your skill in diplomacy, we're not very skilled, so we have a -1 in through there. So they're cool at the moment and getting colder. And then we've got the Taurians in through here. The Taurian regime is unfriendly at the moment. It's going at -4, but we joined them against some pirates. So we have a little bit of a +2 in through there. But that's going to cool off at some point, and then we're just going to have the shared borders going to be the problem. So shared borders ultimately will cause an issue. We've got diplomacy graphs. I think that just sort of shows who's where. Too early in this particular game to make use of it. We get to see, again, all of the information is exposed to us when we come in to do these different types of things. We don't actually have any diplomats that we've assigned into these different areas. We can see what their ideologies actually are as well. Their abilities, their focus is on nihilism, their behaviours, aggressive, expansionist and cruel. These are all things that we can pick for our faction as well, and they all have a bearing on diplomacy. Again, the interweaving of all of these really intricate mechanics, but in a very immersive and role play sort of way of actually presenting things. And you can but everything's exposed. Again, it is a work of art. It is literally a work of art, the way that they've actually done all this sort of stuff. So anyway, that's I'll just go and we can set up trade routes and things like this eventually as well. But anyway, let's just click on done through there. That's the diplomacy screen. Now, when we come back in, this is another aspect that I really, really like, which is the essentially the vault. And the vault is where when you find artifacts in space, and it's no longer something where you can build like heaps and heaps of ships to go out and look for artifacts. You don't only have like 1 or 2 ships pretty much for the whole game that will actually be looking for them. Now, where's our ship? I'm not sure. We've got one over here, I think. So this one here is actually going in and sort of looking at these particular capsules. This is an anomaly. Now, when it goes through here, it may find an artifact, and then we have a choice of what to do with the artifact. Sometimes we can sort of convert it into cash or some other sort of resource, or we can pop it in the vault. Now, I've got a few different things in the vault through here. So I've got a star drive module, so increases the hyperspace speed of a target ship, so I can actually attach that to a specific ship. So for example, if I wanted to attach it to this ship in here, I would just go and get it, and so with that one selected, click on that one, and then just go across. That's now been attached to it, and now we have extra hyperdrive. Where is it? Yeah, so there'll be an extra movement in there ultimately as of the next turn. So that's how the vault works. Again, it's a really nice system. It's very unique. It sort of promotes that whole role play aspect of the game in a meaningful way, and in a unique way as well, because you don't know what you're going to find. So in this case, we've also picked one up. A creature was forced out of another dimension and trapped in ours. We could release it, but it may go after us as well. So spawns a minor space monster. So if we wanted to sort of add that one into Drengen space, I think we can just come back in, and I don't know if we can place it in these locations, but let's make life a bit more fun for them. So we don't have vision on that one, but that's now been placed in there. There's a space monster floating around in there. Doesn't matter, we've got one of our own, which we accidentally released in here. So we've got a space creature that's actually in that location as well, which we have to avoid near our home world. But again, it's just an awesome, like just the the role play and the whole combination of everything is just really, really cool. We're nearly at the end of this now. The Galactic Bazaar is buy and sell the galaxy's most valuable resources. So this one allows you to then go and actually, if you've got we've got like a lot of gerantium, and we may need something different. Like for example, if we go into this gerantium in through here, we could sell the gerantium, for example, or we could buy Illyrium or one of the main sort of resources. So this is where, once you actually unlock this, you should start to make use of it for things that you do require. Like if we go and let's just go and sell some of these things. So we just go to so we're selling the monthly income in through there. Just sell it down to say 4 in this case, and then we just come back across, and then we just buy some of these. So that's going to then, it's going to be of course much more expensive to buy than to sell, but it does then give us extra special resources we can then go and make use of. Then, for example, and I should have probably shown this beforehand, but if we go back into refuge, there may be some of these, and I'm not going to be keeping on this one going, but actually cannot build not enough Promethean. So this one does require 3 Promethean to build that particular technological capital. So we've got one that we just bought through there, but we could go and sell more and end up getting more of them. This one here requires 3 Promethean as well, and that one there requires a Monsantium deposit to actually sort of then build the Kimberley's Refuge. So these are the sorts of things that we can then go and make use of to sort of get our way through. Now, I don't think we've got Monsantium in through here, I don't think. No, it's just basic resources that we actually have access to. Again, simple mechanics done in a very, very simple way. And so this is why, and I can't show you combat in the game, but because we don't, in this case, we don't actually have anything where we've only got like a very, very small fleet of ships back in through this other side. Actually, what I might do is I might just go and rattle these across, and we'll just go and attack this thing. I don't know if we can actually attack that. I'll see what happens. I'll just pause. Oh, look, I'll just show you this. I was just sort of rattling through the turns, but this is one where we've got a situation report. So Tales from the Corners of the Empire. This is actually the start of a quest line in the game, which is just sort of simple like story prompts. Again, so if true, this could be a wonder. So again, you can see there that the cultural aspect of the game is then we can either push so that we get egalitarianism, sort of cultural awareness being increased to 4, or this one here is totalitarianism increases to 2. So let's just go that way, for example. That then starts a series of different events as we sort of are going through the actual game itself. We have a trade offer through here as well. They're actually now asking for different bits and pieces. Look, I won't get involved in this because we'll be doing this in the game, but it's very, very rich what the game actually does present. I didn't show the technology. I do want to show this because, again, this has been fleshed out again in a very beautiful way. When you first come in, depending on if you've got a director of technology, you'll end up with 3 different choices, which are 50% off your research. So these also randomly present you in a different way that you may want to play the game. You can always go down and pick anything that's actually that's available to you, but you don't get the 50% choice in through here. So for example, if we go for better weapons in through this other side, I might just go and do this one. This is just going to take 1 turn to do it because it's in my 50% off, and so we can just go and grab that one. Again, this is all random, so you sort of end up with the best of both worlds when we do come back in here. So this is the basic selection process. We then actually have a tech navigator, and again, these are now sort of split between, we've got the engineering side of things back here through here where we can build different sort of, like allows us to start building star bases, etc., etc. So as we unlock these, we can then sort of go and do different things as well. We have colonization back over this side, so we get different colonization techs. By the way, the trees are very, very large. The actual benefits you get from each little aspect is not super meaningful, and I actually like that because it means that you don't just come across one tech that suddenly just blows the game apart. There are a few that do have an impact. Like if we go into the warfare, there are a few warfare techs. Now the Drengans will be rattling forward to get planetary invasion. They'll be aiming for this one in through here so that they can sort of land on our planets and take them over. That's a bit of a game changer, being able to sort of then go and unlock the transport module. So there's certain unlocks certainly with what you are doing, But you've got the strategic choice is important with what you actually end up choosing as you go through the tech tree itself. There's an awful lot in here, and it just goes on and on and on. And you end up with sort of like a situation by the time you get into the mid game and late game, and you've got some incredibly powerful things going on. You know, like with everything. It's as I say, very, very cool the way that Stardock have sort of put all of this together. It really is a work of art. And then you've got governance in through here as well, where you've got different sorts of things where you may want to get better diplomacy or trade networks. Networks is a good one to aim for, so you can start to get freighters to start trading with your neighbours. As I say, the combination and balance of all of these different things really, the experience is so enjoyable with this game, with this sort of aspect of the actual game itself. Let's just click on done. So that's, I'm trying to think if have I missed things out. I know I will have, and I'll try to cover everything in the actual Let's Play with tips to go along with it as well. There's certainly a lot of different ways you can play the game to sort of get different things out of it. Anyway, I'll pause until we can sort of see if we can sort of get a bit of space combat going. See if there are more changes. Sorry, guys. The builders, the constructors are now a little bit different than what they've been before in previous games. So you can see through here that I've got a constructor out near the front lines and through this other side. I can build different types of star bases, and they no longer require a civilian. Like it used to be, I forget which version of it was, but you had to sort of use civilians to build the actual star bases. That's no longer the case. So you just build them as required, but you have to then build modules. Now we've got the modules in through here. When we run out of modules, we can't upgrade the star bases. We can still build them, we just can't upgrade them. And so in this case, I want to actually be boosting what happens with the output of these colonies in the long run. But there's a few different choices. If I go and construct a star base, I've got a military star base, which will then sort of help protect this region if we are fighting in this region. That may be viable. We can still pick up the strategic resources nearby, so we can actually get this life relic back in through that side, through that particular star base. Economic star bases boost the worlds around that particular location. So you can see there boosts the economy of your core worlds and collects nearby strategic resources. So that will still actually work with that one through there. And then communications will then push the borders out and sort of make our cultural influence more significant. So we can sort of play. There's all sorts of different ways of playing this game. But anyway, that's the. Let's just go with economic. Construct the star base in through this side. These are the various types of add-ons we can now put with this one. So if we go and use, for example, a Xenoarchaeology lab, this will then chew up one of our modules, and it will then give us a little bit of a boost along from that particular relic. So let's go and throw that one in. And we also have a Starbase factory, which also uses 1 Durantium and 1 module. So we've got 6 Durantium and 1 module. So we'll go and grab that one. We're now out of modules, and this is the end. This is all we can actually then put on this particular Starbase. So Starbases have been simplified a lot. They've been easier to make use of. They're super important. But again, the balance just seems right with these, compared to the previous versions of the game. And so that will then start to sort of then just do its thing back in this region of space. This one also then has like 10 combat ability with the 100 health. So it's difficult for anyone to actually really attack it without a large fleet. Anyway, let's continue on until we can get to this combat finally and finish off this episode. Alright, so we'll just give this one a bit of a go, see if we can actually sort of do this one here. Now this is an artifact. I don't know if we can do this one. I'll just combine these ships. We've got a special ship plus a couple of just normal little ships in through here. Actually, that's not actually combat. Forget that. We're just researching this one in through here. I wish I could spawn something so that we could actually do some combat. There are pirates and things around the place which we haven't actually come across yet. But this will ultimately, what I might do is look, they're going to get through this anomaly. Also, the anomalies don't happen immediately anymore. They do take multiple turns to get. I'll keep on pausing and playing until we sort of see if what we end up getting at this particular anomaly site. Yeah, this is going to be a really poor representation of a battle. I've just got a constructor that's being attacked by a single pirate ship. The pirate ship is going to absolutely smash it. We've got no protection on this particular ship. So we'll just watch the battle. The battle is pretty much like you can just go straight in and just do a quick battle. Now, the reason that the game actually doesn't have like a tactical battle system is because these combats can get dramatically big. Like you can have heaps and heaps of different sort of ships ultimately in these battles. And so The auto battler is, I used to think it would be great to just have like a tactical combat the whole way through. My thought process on that has now changed a lot. I think an auto battle system is the only real way to actually have it in the game, particularly with all the other aspects of the game being so streamlined. Battle also has to be streamlined as well. My only issue with the auto battle system is it's probably just you're not making any choices at all, and I would love to see some choices that you do make. Well, you are making choices. You're making choices with the construction and the composition of your fleet, but you're not making choices about placement or anything like this. So personally, I'm hoping that we get a little bit more nuance in the auto battle system, but I do embrace now the fact that it is auto battle, and I used not to. Like in previous versions of the game, I was always wanting a tactical battle system. I no longer have that mindset. So if you've been watching any of my videos over the preceding years, my mind has changed, but I still want more. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, let's just watch the battle. This will be very, very one-sided. Attack of the Pirates. There's different ways of looking at the actual combat as well. Just do the top-down look. It'll just keep an auto zoom in through here. So we've got a big constructor. As this thing closes in, we'll then start to see the information down the bottom in through here as well, which will be fine. We've got all sorts of different controls about. We can hide the battle log if you're wanting to sort of see what happens. We can pause at any time to see exactly what's going on. But it really just is representing what actually happened in the combat itself. So it comes in, starts to fire at the ship. So that's missing. There we go. There's got a hit there eventually. Back in through that other side. 1 damage to the actual ship. This can take a long time. And so if we had like multiple ships in the combat itself, so there we go. It's all over and done with very, very quickly. But with a big fleet, and really that you can ultimately have like massive fleets in the game, it really does look really quite interesting and exciting. So, but it just doesn't have as much input as I would like to have in the setup for it. Anyway, that's my only. I'm trying to think, is there anything else with the game that I'm uncomfortable with, or not, that I'm not embracing fully? And this is the only aspect. Everything else I just think is absolutely brilliant. Anyway, let's just click on done there. There is one other thing I do have to sort of go and show actually, which is the if we've got our fleet coming in through here, this would be one-sided from our perspective. We're just trying to chase down the pirates there. Maybe I'll finish off with that as well. The one thing I haven't shown though is the ship designer, and I will show that as well before we actually leave this episode. This is going to be a long episode already is a very, very long episode. All right, so I've got a little area in here where we can sort of try to get back against a group of 5 pirate ships with our 3 ships in through this other side. We've got a combat rating there of 5, as you can sort of see through this other side. Actually, another thing we haven't mentioned is invasions, really. Invasions are now done through like a siege mechanic with conquest ratings, where you have to sort of besiege the planet first over a number of times before you then can actually sort of go in, which is, again, a really nice mechanic. Very simple, very easy to understand, but I just love what they've done. Okay, let's go in and so actually saying here we're going to have a total loss. That's okay. They've got 15 hit points. They've got an attack of 4, and so we'll just see what actually happens here. I won't pause this. When we play the actual Let's Play, I'll go through in detail as to what's going on. So we've got our small ships sort of coming in. The different classes will attack different size ships. These are fighters. If we just go and have a bit of a look, I think that these are the class is fighter. The class of these is also fighter. And so fighters attack fighters and bombers, I think. This one over through here is a frigate. And ultimately in this case, it's just going to be attacking each other. But the classes attack, they've got different attack orders automatically. And this is where, so we're going to be zipping through. Everyone missed. No, not yet. They all got destroyed, so we've just got this guy here now. And there's one of our civilians has now been destroyed. One of our citizens, so we've actually now had a total loss in through that other side. We did manage to destroy 3 of their ships. So, actually no, only one of their ships destroyed, sorry. And all 3 of ours was destroyed, so total defeat. There we are, done. It's but that ultimately can be quite intricate, and so just be aware that actually will sort of then change. So we've lost a couple of battles in through this other side, back in through here now against these pirates. So that's the combat. Now, the other thing I wanted to just do was to get out and show you the ship builder. In fact, we can do that a few different ways. One way we can do that is if we just go into, not in here, sorry, just click on done. If we go into our, this is the actual the shipyard that we actually have attached to the planet. I can go in and actually go into and build a new design in through here. I won't spend much time in here, but these allow me to then go and start to sort of tweak things where I can start a new design. I can then sort of start to construct everything for the actual design itself. At this point in time, with version 1.7, at the moment we don't actually have workshop support or mod support in the game. It's been taken out while they do all this development. It will be coming back in fairly soon, but not just at this point in time of recording. So that's on its way very, very soon. And so these are things where we can start to just go and we can change the componentry on the ship. I won't go into it in much detail, but God, they've done a good job of this. And this one has been in the game since version 2 of GalCiv, the builder. And it's always been something that's been very, very unique. But they've done it. It's every iteration of the game gets an enhancement to what it can then go and do. And I remember in GalCiv 2, it was revolutionary back then, but it was clunky, whereas they've now made it so much easier to use. Now, I won't actually go through and actually build it. This is just a probe that we're looking at through this other side. But again, you've got like the different sorts of systems, defenses, engine boosts, etc. You've still got your sort of like your equipment manifest down through here, so you add it onto the actual ship itself. You can add in sort of cosmetics as well into the overall look of it. It's just really, really nicely done, into cosmetic mode into here. Again, this one then just adds in where we can start to sort of then go across the hulls. We've got the core components, any downloaded components. These are the actual individual little bits and pieces. We can start, actually this is the hulls. That's the types, bulkheads. So we start to sort of add these things on if we wanted to, so they can sort of be placed. I won't do it because it's a whole art to itself. So we can just go and place that one. There is ways of mirroring these as well. You've got so many different tools than what you had in version 2, but this is sort of how it does work. So actually that is on by default on mirror at this point in time. And so we can then go and tweak the overall look of the actual ships themselves to not just the functionality, but the overall look. And so these don't add anything to the game other than just make them look cool. Which is great. So very, very soon, when the workshop opens for GalCiv for Supernova, there will be a lot of ships you'll be able to download, because there will be thousands upon thousands that people will put up there very, very quickly. And some of them are absolutely beautiful, brilliant pieces of art. But at the moment, modding is not on yet, but it will be coming very, very soon. I think we're done with this episode. It's been a long, long time actually. I hope it's not too long for you, and if you've got to the back end of it, thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to sort of getting into the game. I was going to set up my actual faction we were going to play, but I'll do that in the next episode. So we'll sort of start from the start and just work our way through. But there's so much to show with the scope of this game. There's just so much in it. Like, it really is mind-blowingly deep in terms of what it does do. But on the surface, it doesn't look that deep, but there's just, as I say, there's just so much water movement under the surface. It's brilliant. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode where we actually start the actual gameplay.